Once upon a time. Those words might feel safe, like bedtime, lullabies, a fairy tale cocoon. But this story, this version I'm about to share with you is anything but safe. You probably think you know it. A hungry boy, a cow traded for magic beans, a beanstalk that rockets into the sky, and a giant's roar that ends in a fatal fall. That's the sanitized bedtime tale, a pretty wrapper hiding something far older, far darker. Let me tell you the truth. Jack's story is older than the Bible, older than the pyramids, older than writing itself. It wasn't penned by a Victorian author. This tale was sung by nomads across steppes and mountains 5,000 years ago, passed by word of mouth long before the first letters etched into clay. And buried in those ancient whispers, you'll find something far stranger than just a boy and a giant. You'll find giants that weren't monsters, but memories. A beanstalk that wasn't a plant, but a bridge. A theft that wasn't just greed, but a transgression. So pour yourself a drink, close your eyes for a moment, let the fire crackle. And stay with me, because when we are done tonight, you'll never hear Once Upon a Time the same way again. Jack lived in a falling down hut on the edge of a forest. His mother, once vibrant, was now hollow-eyed with worry. They were so poor that they'd already eaten the carrots, and even the mousetraps were empty. All they had left was their cow, weak, her milk long dried up. So they sent Jack to market to sell her. But halfway there, he met a man with eyes like storm clouds and a smile that curdled something in the air. "I'll trade you more than money," the man said, pulling out 5 beans black as midnight, streaked with silver. "Plant them, and the sky will open." It made no sense. Why would anyone trade a cow, food, warmth, comfort, for beans? But something in the man's voice was impossible to ignore. In a breath, the cow was gone. Jack returned home, clutching the beans like a secret. His mother erupted, ashamed, furious, desperate. She threw the beans outside. Neither spoke again that night. Daybreak brought green light flooding through torn curtains. Outside, where those beans had been tossed, the earth trembled. A stalk like a green tower erupted, thicker than any tree trunk, coiling past rooftops, bristling with leaves the size of sails. It shot straight into the clouds, vanishing into a world Jack had only seen in dreams. The stalk didn't just grow, it pulled. It called to him, whispering, "Climb." Jack didn't tell his mother. He took a loaf of bread, climbed the stalk, heart hammering, fingers raw from grip. The air grew thin, the wind cold and sharp. Through the mist, daylight beckoned. Then, he broke through the clouds. Jack emerged into a bright new world, a place that hummed with quiet power. Below, lush hills rolled beneath crystal skies. Every blade of grass felt alive, every sound sharp. And in the distance, a castle floated, walls shimmering, gates carved from bone, towers reaching like fingers. At the base of the path stood a woman, massive, but not cruel. Her hair fell in braids thick as tree trunks. With her, she carried a basket heavy with breakfast. Jack approached, hunger pinning his feet. "What are you doing here, worm?" she rumbled, her voice like distant thunder. "This place isn't made for children." I'm just hungry," Jack stammered. She sighed, an ancient sound, as though the air itself sighed with her. She ushered him inside. Just as Jack bit into bread as big as his head, the ground shook. A voice rolled through the hall. "Fee, fi, fa, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman." From beside the hearth, the giant's wife shoved Jack through a trapdoor. He landed in darkness, heart pounding. The door opened overhead. Jack peeked out. A giant, massive, terrifying, stood there. His eyes glowed faintly red. His beard tangled with bone. "Who's here?" His voice thundered, but his eyes were closed. The giant's wife fluffed his hair until he nodded off. Jack, trembling, slunk out. Gold lay in piles like rivers on the table. A sack was within reach. Jack stole it. He fled, bag of gold over his shoulder, clambered down the stalk before the giant even woke. When Jack reached home, he threw gold into his mother's arms. Tears followed, wishes whispered. But Jack's eyes weren't on her. They were on the broken, glowing sky where the stalk faded. Because now he knew there was more up there. And so he would go back. Jack couldn't sleep that night. He sat by the window, staring at the beanstalk. It swayed in the moonlight like it was breathing. Each creak of the vine seemed to whisper to him, "Come back." His mother, cradling the sack of gold, thought they were saved. But Jack had tasted something more dangerous than hunger. Curiosity at first light. He was already halfway up the stalk. This time, the climb felt easier. The vine almost seemed to bend toward him, like it wanted him back. The moment he broke through the clouds, the air shimmered warmer. He could smell bread baking, meat roasting. His stomach growled loud enough to startle a bird the size of a horse. And there she was again, the giant's wife. She saw him from the path and shook her head. "You," she muttered, "are trouble walking." But she still waved him in. This time, she gave him a heel of bread so big it needed 2 hands. "You must leave before my husband." Her words cut off as the ground shook. The door burst open. The giant filled it, blotting out the light. "Fee, fi, fa, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman." His wife's eyes flicked to Jack. "It's just the oven," she said, tossing more wood on the fire. The giant grumbled, sat heavily at the table. His hand, the size of a cartwheel, dropped something onto the table. A hen. Small compared to the giant's bulk, but bright gold from beak to claw. "Lay," he commanded. The hen shivered. Then, clink. A perfect golden egg rolled across the table. Jack's breath caught. The giant dozed soon after, his great snores rattling the rafters. Jack's fingers closed around the hen before he realized what he was doing. It squawked once, loud enough that the giant shifted in his sleep. Jack froze. But the snores resumed. Jack ran. Out the door, down the path, to the beanstalk. The hen clucked wildly in his arms, its golden feathers flashing in the sun. The moment Jack touched the stalk, the wind seemed to rise, carrying him downward. The earth rushed up. The hen became their treasure. Every day it laid an egg of pure gold. Jack's mother prayed with it, sang to it. But Jack looked at the stalk. The first sack of gold had bought survival. The golden hen brought comfort. But up there were still more treasures. And something in him whispered that he hadn't yet taken the one thing that really mattered. Across ancient Europe, storytellers spoke of animals that could create endless wealth or food, a blessing from the gods, or a curse to those who stole it. In some Norse myths, it was a magical millstone that poured out gold. In Celtic stories, it was a cauldron that never emptied. In Slavic tales, it was a firebird whose feathers glowed like the sun. These were never meant to be owned by mortals. They were guarded by giants, dragons, spirits, forces that existed to keep them from human hands. Jack, knowingly or not, had joined a tradition of thieves stretching back thousands of years. And in those stories, the thief never stopped at just one prize. It was night when Jack made his choice. The moon was sharp and white as bone. The beanstalk shimmered in silver light. Jack climbed again. This time, the air above the clouds was different. Heavy, quiet. Even the grass seemed to bow as he passed. The giant's wife was nowhere in sight. The castle doors stood open. Inside, the halls were darker. The giant sat alone at the far end of a massive table. On it, resting on a black cloth, was the strangest thing Jack had ever seen, a harp. Carved of bone, strung with silver, shaped like a woman whose mouth was open as if singing. The giant ran his fingers along the strings, and the harp sang back. Not music, words. "I miss the earth," it whispered in a voice like wind through leaves. "I miss the sun." Jack knew, without knowing how, that this was what he had come for. The moment his hands touched it, the harp shivered. "Thief," it said. Not loud, but the sound seemed to carry. The giant's head snapped up. His eyes locked on Jack. Jack bolted. The harp screamed, not in words, but in a song so sharp it made the air shake. "Fee, fee, fa, fum," the giant roared, leaping to his feet. The ground shook with his steps. Jack burst through the castle doors, harp clutched to his chest. The beanstalk was ahead. Behind him, the giant's shadow swallowed the ground. Jack ran. The harp scream was still ringing in his ears, a high, mournful wail that seemed to slice through the clouds. His bare feet slapped against the damp grass, every step sinking into earth that didn't feel like earth. Behind him, the giant roared, not the lazy thunder Jack had heard before, but a sound like mountains breaking. "Thief!" Jack didn't dare look back. The green spire rose out of the mist, swaying like it knew what was coming. The clouds tore around it, revealing glimpses of the world below, rivers flashing silver, forests shrinking to patches of dark green. Jack's lungs burned. His arms ached from holding the harp, but he couldn't let it go. Even through the chaos, he felt its strange pulse against his chest, like a heartbeat that wasn't his. "You can't take me there," the harp whispered. "I was not made for your world." Jack ignored it. Each step of the giant was like a drumbeat, rattling Jack's bones. The harp scream had roused more than just its master. From the edges of the mist, shapes moved, massive silhouettes that melted away when Jack tried to focus on them. Faces, vast and half-formed, peered from the clouds like they were looking up from the bottom of the sea. They didn't try to stop him. They just watched. Jack realized, with a cold twist in his gut, that they were waiting to see what would happen. The giant was almost on him now, close enough that Jack felt the wind of his hand swipe past his back. Jack leapt for the stalk. His fingers dug into the vine's slick surface. It groaned under his weight, shuddering as if it could feel the tension. He started down. Fast. Too fast. Leaves the size of sails whipped past his face. The wind roared in his ears. The harp spoke again, not in words this time, but in a low hum that seemed to vibrate through the vine itself. And then Jack saw it. From below, the beanstalk had looked like a plant. But now, he saw the truth. It wasn't made of wood. Not really. The surface was smooth, almost like braided stone covered in moss. And the moss wasn't moss at all. It was something more like fur, or feathers, shifting under the touch. Jack felt a pulse travel down the vine. Not a breeze. A pulse. The beanstalk was alive. And somehow, it was listening. The clouds below were thinning. He could see the patchwork of fields, the dark stripe of the forest. Home was close. But so was the giant. The massive hand grabbed at the vine above him. The stalk swayed, nearly throwing Jack off. Jack wrapped an arm around the vine and clung there, panting. The harp in his other arm had gone silent, completely still. And in that terrible quiet, the giant spoke, not in the booming English he'd heard before, but in a language that felt older than sound. The vine answered. Jack didn't understand the words, but he felt the meaning. This wasn't just a plant that reached the clouds. This was a ladder, a tether between two realms. The land above wasn't simply in the sky. It was another world entirely, a place where things like giants and living harps belonged. And this ladder, this living bridge, wasn't meant to be climbed by humans. The giant was calling to it, telling it to throw Jack off. Jack didn't think. He didn't look down. He just moved. Hand over hand, faster and faster. The vine shuddered violently, like it was trying to shake him loose. The giant's voice bellowed again, and the vine jolted sideways. Jack's foot slipped. His stomach lurched. He caught himself on a thick leaf and slid the last dozen feet, landing hard in the dirt. The harp stirred. "Now you must finish it," it whispered. Jack looked up. The giant's massive face was peering down through the clouds, teeth bared. One hand was already gripping the vine. If Jack didn't act now, the giant would be in his world within moments. Jack ran for the woodshed. His mother, still half asleep, called after him, but he didn't stop. He grabbed the axe. The beanstalk loomed ahead, swaying like it knew what he was about to do. The giant's boots were already punching through the cloud line. The sound of them hitting the vine rang like war drums. Jack swung the axe. The first strike barely cut the skin of the vine. A dark sap oozed out, smelling of rain and something older. The second blow made it shudder violently. The giant roared, not in anger, but in fear. The giant was halfway down the beanstalk now. His huge hands gripped the living vine, each grasp making it groan. The clouds behind him churned like a storm was pouring through the hole between worlds. Jack swung the axe again. The vine wailed. Not the sound of wood splitting, the sound of something alive in pain. Dark sap splashed Jack's shirt, hot against his skin. The smell was like fresh rain mixed with iron. In Jack's arms, the harp began to sing again, low and steady. Not the panic scream from before, but something mournful. It wasn't a song for Jack. It was for the vine. Jack didn't understand the words, but he could feel them. They were goodbyes. The vine's trembling slowed, as though it had stopped fighting what was coming. The giant's face was almost clear now, his shadow swallowing Jack's yard. "Stop," he bellowed, but there was fear in his voice. Jack gritted his teeth, lifted the axe, and brought it down with everything he had. The vine split. A deep, shuddering crack ran through it, and with a sound like a mountain breaking in two, it began to fall. The giant roared. His massive body dropped, smashing through the cloud bank. He fell past Jack's view, swallowed by distance and the world's silence. Then, a thud. So deep it seemed to shake the bones of the earth. And then, nothing. The wind stilled. The clouds above began to close, knitting together like a wound healing. Jack stood there, chest heaving, axe still in hand. The beanstalk lay in ruin, curling in on itself, the green fading like dying embers. The harp whispered, "The way is closed." Jack didn't know if that was good or bad. In the stories told to children, Jack kills the giant and lives happily ever after with his gold and his hen. But that's not how the old storytellers spoke of it. In the oldest myths, the ones passed along in firelight by people who still feared the gods, Jack's theft was not just about treasure. It was about power. The hen that laid golden eggs? That was endless wealth, the lure that destroys kingdoms from within. The sack of gold? That was the lifeblood of the other world, the offering that kept the peace between realms. And the harp? That was the most dangerous of all. It wasn't just an instrument. It was a voice, a witness, a key. Some legends say it could summon the ladder back if it was ever destroyed. Others claim it could sing the names of the dead and bring them home. By stealing it, Jack hadn't just angered a giant. He'd severed the thread between two worlds. Archaeologists have traced the Jack and the Beanstalk type of story across thousands of years and dozens of cultures. In the myths of the Norse, a hero climbs the world tree to steal treasure from the gods. In Siberian legends, a shaman climbs a sky pillar to speak with the spirits, risking death if he brings something back. In West African tales, the rope to heaven is cut after a theft, stranding humans below forever. All tell the same warning. There was once a bridge between worlds, but human greed destroyed it. Jack is not a hero. He is the one who made sure we could never go back. The next morning, Jack's mother asked him what happened. He didn't tell her about the vine's pulse, or the shapes in the clouds, or the harp's strange words. He just said the giant was gone, and they were safe. The hen laid another golden egg. The harp stayed silent. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind was just right, Jack thought he could hear it humming. For over 5,000 years, this tale has crossed continents, shape-shifting as it went. It was told by farmers in muddy fields, by sailors staring at the horizon, by soldiers on the eve of battle. Because deep down, we all know there's something above us, a place we once touched but lost. And maybe, just maybe, someone will find the way back. So if you enjoyed hearing the real story, the one older and stranger than the bedtime version, hit that like button so more people can discover it too. Subscribe for more forgotten legends that are hiding in plain sight. And remember, when someone says once upon a time, listen closely. The truth might not be safe,